Welcome to the Bourbon Van. I'm Phil.
I'm Julie. We're back at the tasting station.
We've got so much ground to cover today.
We do.
We have so many miles to ride today. That one didn't work as well. Sorry. We are talking all about our trip that we just got back from. And as you can see, we are back at the tasting station, ever so christened by me randomly during the Advent tournament, and it sticks, I think.
I like the tasting station because that's basically all we do here, because it's not really big enough or comfortable enough to eat at. And there goes the cat.
The cat has lost her mind. As soon as we set up this camera in this place, she went absolutely bananas. First off, I want to introduce what we're going to be drinking here today, because we do have a lot to talk about, but we're going to start off by saying this is the bottle that we were most excited to get back and try. You see, this one was waiting for us for over a month, maybe 2 months before we got home, and this is Still Austin Straight Rye Whiskey. This is the Bottled in Bond Series Spring 2024 release. And full disclosure, this was sent to us from our friends at Still Austin, and doesn't change the fact that we've liked all the whiskeys that we've tried from them, and we've been very excited about their rise. And you can see we've done some damage to this one. Got into it with some friends. Everybody seems to like this one. So we'll give you a few tasting notes down the line today, and at the end of this video, we'll let you know if we think it's worth your time or not.
Let's start off with the cheers to a successful road trip.
I think that is a great idea. Okay.
Sorry, I'm just enjoying that sip.
Yeah, it's a distracting whiskey, isn't it?
It is. And like we said, we got into it with some friends, and the bottle's almost gone already.
Yeah, we put a big dent in that bottle right off the bat. I will give a couple of tasting notes. I wasn't going to. Rye spice.
Yep.
Very fruit forward, blueberry, fruit medley type of thing, berry medley. But even with all that great rye spice and all the other things happening, there's a smooth, like buttercream frosting that comes in. It's a beautiful texture, coats nicely. It's a very sweet finish on top of a spicy whiskey. That's nice.
And I just want to say that the oak really shines in this, but I love that sweet finish. It's delicious.
Yeah, delicious. Great way to put it. All right, so all the statistics are coming your way from the trip, but we're also going to discuss our top 5 bottles. We were going to do a top 5 bottles of the trip, but really it's top 5 bottles of 2024. We haven't had anything else outside of the trip. And we're going to talk our biggest disappointment whiskey. We are going to talk about the bottles that we purchased that had nothing to do with the trip, that were nice surprises that we liked, and the bottle we missed the most.
Yes.
And before we get to any of that, I have my notebook here, because I don't want to forget any of this stuff. You don't want me to forget this.
I don't want you to forget.
Days on the road. Do you know how many days on the road we actually...
100.
100. Our longest road trip to date.
I know, I'm excited, and it could have gone twice as long. We were having such a blast. I wasn't sick of the van. We had made a pact at the beginning. If after 30 days we were miserable, or we weren't getting along anymore, we'd just head home, and man, I could have just kept going.
Yeah, at this point, I think we both know that when we're in the van, we can just go and go. It's great. We love it. We love that road life. So that is a nice lead in to the next question, which is, what was your biggest surprise on our road trip?
It was that I didn't get sick of the van. Not that I thought I would. We've done longer road trips. A lot of our road trips, we stop at family and friends, and so kind of have a break from the van. But this was 3 months of just being in the van, with very few times where we weren't in the van. And I loved every minute of it. It's a small van, probably less than 60 square feet.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of room, but we learned to maneuver and figure out how to get ready for bed at night and get up in the morning and who was doing what. And it just was seamless. And when you live half your life outside, or most of your life outside, and then you just do the basic necessities inside, it just is a really symbiotic relationship that we kind of formulated over the last 100 days, and I loved every minute of it.
Yeah, it's the simple life.
Yeah.
You know, it's a Ram ProMaster. It's 6 years old. It's nothing fancy.
Nope.
It is, the amenities are very basic. Yeah, who can complain about that type of life? Nice and simple. To me, the biggest surprise was the state parks that we encountered on the road.
They were great.
From the Salton Sea in California to the beach in California, Picacho Peak outside of Tucson, Arizona, Elephant Butte Lake State Park in New Mexico. All of them had rather spacious sites, nice amenities, and you could stay for up to 14 days at a time. Honestly, fantastic locations, affordable with all the amenities. And state parks catch a lot of flack out there. People are like, oh, we should be spending our money on other things. I'm telling you, the state parks, if you haven't been to the state parks in your own state, go check them out, because I felt like they were competing each one to outdo each other. Really impressive places that were peaceful and fun, had great trails, showers, clean bathrooms. Really impressed with the state parks out there.
And what I really liked, they were surprisingly affordable, which is always something I'm looking for.
We spent 10 days in one spot that was only $7 a night. You can't really beat that. And then, of course, the biggest disappointments for both of us, it wasn't the places that we went to, it's the places that we didn't get to.
Right.
Number one for both of us, because we talked about this a little bit yesterday, was that we didn't get to go to Big Bend National Park in Texas.
Yeah.
We just had to turn around and get back. We had work things to get to, unfortunately. So also, Austin, Texas would have been great. It was high up on our list, and it would have coincided perfectly with the eclipse. We didn't make it to either one of those things. And then the other one for you was the city in New Mexico that we didn't get far enough north to check out.
Yeah, Santa Fe. I really want to see it. I know it's supposed to be so cute, a little bit eclectic, but we're hoping to do a Route 66 trip at some point, so we'll hit it on that trip.
Yeah, we'll get it on the next one. No harm, no foul. And Big Bend National Park's still on the list, and we got to see a ton of national parks. Among the states that we visited, 6.
Not
Before we get into more statistics, I want to start talking about the top 5 bottles that we acquired on our trip, because they all come from the Southwest.
Yep.
And they all were kind of big surprises. These are places that we knew a little bit about, maybe not a ton about, but let's get on with that first bottle, and it comes to us from Texas.
coming in at number 5, Iron Root Promethean.
Iron Root Promethean is a 100 proof dark and brooding creative rebel. I've made this joke before. It's kind of like me. And it comes to us from Texas. Of course, this is the only bourbon on our list. We didn't encounter a ton of bourbon while we were out there. We certainly didn't encounter a ton of bourbon that really impressed us. This one did. It has tons of great flavors. We did a thorough tasting on it when we were, I believe, in Cave Creek, Arizona. So go back and check out that video if you want to know a lot more about this whiskey. It really has a ton of Texas character. Just a lovely whiskey that we thought was fantastic and deserves a place on this list.
We do love Texas whiskey.
We do.
Coming in at number 4 is Colkegan Cask Strength, coming in at 118 proof.
So this is Santa Fe Spirits out of New Mexico. This is, of course, a single malt whiskey, and it is smoked as well. We ran into a lot of single malts out there. We ran into a lot of smoked whiskeys out there, and I believe something like 30% of the barley in this is smoked. So it's not a ton. It's not overly smoky, but that cask strength, the character is huge on this bottle. There's so many flavors, and that's another one that we did a tasting of on the road. I'll link it up here so you can see a more thorough tasting of this bottle. But Santa Fe Spirits, one more reason that we need to get to Santa Fe. Okay, that's bottles 5 and 4 of our top 5 bottles. We are going to get on to some more statistics right now. Let's start with the mileage that we ran. So Julie training for her 50K, which is happening very soon here, and I trained along with you because I intended to run a 50K, and then we realized logistically it wasn't going to work out, but I have a 100 miler coming on in the fall, so it made sense to build up my endurance along with Julie here. So Julie beat me, I would say. She beat me handily over the 100 days that we were gone. 315.88 miles is what I ran.
Yep.
For you, you just couldn't be bothered to hit 378 miles. 377.99.
I love it.
And that means that a total for the both of us while we were gone, 693.87 miles. That comes out to an average of 3.47 miles per day per person.
That's amazing. A year ago, I could never have imagined it.
When we started out on this trip, you were kind of complaining like, oh, another 8 miler.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't believe it.
This is horrible.
And
Like, what are we doing with our lives?
And in the end, you're running 22 milers. Like, look, should we go out for beers now? Like, it was no big deal for you. So I know you're going to do very well in your 50K with all that training. Well, and as you know, we have the Planet Fitness Black Card. That's when we're on the road. If we don't have another place to run, or if the weather's terrible, or we just need a shower too, we go to Planet Fitness with our Black Card. It allows us to get into all of them. We went to 8 different ones.
I liked it. And the Planet Fitnesses were really nice. I think that could have been one of our most surprising things. We never knew where we were going to pick one up. We hadn't planned that ahead. And every single one looked brand new. It was so nice to have showers. It was just a really wonderful place for us to just get our running in, but also get cleaned up.
Yeah, absolutely. You can cross train there. We jumped on the bike sometimes just to get loose. So it was really, Planet Fitness helped us a ton on this trip. So we aren't connected to them in any way. We just like to give them a shout out because they made van life a lot easier for us. Speaking of places that we went that we really enjoyed, favorite campsites. And I'm going to go first here because once again, we're talking about state parks. And so I'm just going to be repeating myself a little bit here. Picacho Peak outside of Tucson, that was such a huge campsite and trails right out the back door, tons of room. People weren't tripping over each other.
Nope.
The facilities were great. It was fantastic. And the other one was Cave Creek outside of Scottsdale, Arizona. A similar situation there. Huge sites, so much room, great trails. We ran and ran and ran because I got us lost, and
That's okay.
The trails were great.
We got to explore so much. I love any kind of campsite that has activities for you to do outside of just sitting, maybe drinking a whiskey, having a beer. Not that I don't enjoy that too.
Sure.
But it was so nice. Cave Creek especially was just so wonderful. I mean, I think we ran like 12 miles one day. We did 7 miles the next day. And I'm sure there's many, many more trails that we could have explored.
Yeah, maybe. I have a feeling we kind of saw
Nailed them all.
Yeah, it kind of took us on a wild goose chase one day.
And I have 2 as well. The first one I want to talk about is Joshua Tree National Park. It was so beautiful, just the national park in general, but then we stayed at Hidden
Valley.
Thank goodness you're here. Hidden Valley Campground. We really lucked out at our spot. I mean, our spot was just surrounded by bouldering. It was just really fun. Phil and I, we don't rock climb, we don't boulder, but it was fun to see all the people that were. There was endless trails. We were right in the middle of the national park. It was quiet. It was cheap. The stars were just glowing in the sky. It was just phenomenal. And then the other one I want to talk about is in New Mexico, and it is Elephant Butte Lake State Park.
You nailed that.
I know, and
It's a lot to remember.
I always forget how to, I transpose the words on that one. But the reason I love this one, the spot was enormous.
Huge.
And it was so quiet. And the scenery was so vast. And of course there's buttes, but then there's just like endless views. And then we had an 11-mile running and biking trail right outside our campsite. It was perfection.
Yeah, that running trail was amazing.
Yeah.
It made getting our training easy, and it just kind of rolling hills and beautiful out there.
Yep.
Completely exposed. If we were there right now while I'm wearing long sleeves, we would be burning up out there, and I'm sure there'd be plenty of rattlesnakes and other critters out there to avoid, but the timing when we were there was absolutely perfect. So
I didn't think about that either, that it was a little bit chillier, so all of those little creepy crawlers were sleeping for the winter.
Before we get on with more statistics, let's talk about bottles number 3 and 2 from our top 5 bottles list.
And I'm so excited to talk about bottle number 3. It is Andalusia Whiskey Company's Striker Single Malt Whiskey. And this one is also made in Texas.
What a huge surprise this whiskey was. You know, we've heard about it here and there, never seen a bottle of it, saw this one, and then saw the version of it that's not smoked.
Right.
And this one is smoked with oak mesquite and apple woods. It is complex, it is layered, it is 100 proof, aged 3 years, really rather affordable, I thought, for what it is. And absolutely in love with this whiskey from the first taste. Could not believe how complex it was. And of course, we will link so that you can go back and look at the full tasting of this whiskey, because there's a lot to say about it, but the number one thing to remember about it is it's delicious. What are the odds that bottle number 2 is another American single malt whiskey?
Well, we are the single malt band now. But it's not. It's Corbin Cash 1917. It is a rye whiskey. Boy, oh boy, do I love this this whiskey. And it was the first bottle we picked up on the road.
It was, yeah. This is the Merced Rye. This is their barrel-proof version, and just crushes your palate with amazing flavor. The spice is great. The fruit is great. The oak is incredible. California with a beautiful rye that stunned us. And yeah, for our first bottle that we picked up on the entire trip, it was good enough that as we drank it down, at some point we stopped ourselves and said, hey, we need to hold on to this thing because it's a special whiskey. And even though California is relatively close to us, that distillery is not.
Right.
And of course, they don't sell it around here. So now it's one of those bottles that we keep an eye on and we go, okay, one of these days we're going to have to go back down there. But until then, we need to be very judicious with our pours. It's got to be a real special occasion now because that is fantastic whiskey. All right, the next thing we want to talk about here is maybe the category that we've been looking forward to talking about the most.
Okay.
Certainly the category that our friend Russ D wants to hear about the most.
Food.
The best things that we ate. And I actually have to read this because we put so much here.
I love it, yes.
So let's just start it with, these were the things that I fell in love with. Shrimp tacos. First off, shrimp tacos anywhere. I love them. But the ones at Malibu Seafood on the coast were absolutely amazing. The other thing I'm in love with, queso shrimp tacos. I didn't even know that these existed. It's shrimp tacos with cheese inside and then outside. It's fried. And it's such a flavor explosion. We had them in El Paso, had them in Hatch, had them somewhere else too. All of those were absolutely amazing. And yeah, queso shrimp tacos in Malibu. Everywhere we went, it seemed like somebody was doing something very cool with shrimp tacos.
So mine's a little eclectic compared to your shrimp tacos and shrimp tacos.
You are more interesting in general.
So my number one favorite thing that I ate on the road was the green chili enchiladas that we got in El Paso.
Yeah, M&J, I think?
L&J.
L&J, okay, yeah.
It was unlike any enchilada that I've ever eaten. They're known for it. When I asked what we should order, they said, this is what everyone orders here. I wish I could eat it again. It was so delicious, and if you're ever in El Paso, you should eat them.
You out-ordered me so badly
So
that day.
bad.
I was very, very envious of what you had on your plate. Now, for you, your second place was fish and chips at Malibu Seafood. So Malibu Seafood tops the list for both of us, really.
It was unbelievable. And I don't even like fish.
Yeah.
Like, I'll have a bite, but I'm not going to eat a meal of it. I went into this thinking, if I don't like it, Phil, just end up eating it. But I think I ate it 3 times in the 3 weeks that we were there. It was so good. It was perfectly crisp. The fish was so fresh and delicious. The French fries were unbelievable. It was just a really, really wonderful lunch.
And lastly, for you, and honestly for me too, because this was a special place for us because we used to live in Chicago for years and years.
Yeah.
You haven't had a decent Italian beef in how long?
Since we left.
Yeah. Chicago Italian beef is on a different level. That's the truth.
Every time I go home, I have to eat Italian beef, and it's not like I haven't tried. Every time we travel to a new state, a restaurant says, we have Chicago-style Italian beef, and I'm like, and then I order it, and it is not the same. This was the closest, and I'm talking the closest that we've come to a Chicago beef, and it was in Mesa, Arizona. It was right outside of spring training for the Cubs, so maybe there was some Chicagoans there making the food, but it was pretty darn close, and I felt like I was back at home.
Yeah, that whole area was almost like a little Chicago. There was Italian beef. The pizza was very Chicago-like. The dogs were Chicago-like. There was a lot to like there. It was really like a taste of home for us when we were visiting in Mesa. An eclectic grouping of food that you enjoyed. I definitely probably should have expanded my horizons a little more, but, you know, drenching things in queso and eating tacos is what I like, so that's what I stuck with.
And it can't go wrong.
Next up is a weird category for us. Scariest moments.
Ah, yes.
Because things are going to happen on the road. That's just the way that it is. And number one for me, and I don't know if this was the scariest for you, but my blood ran cold when I heard it. We had just gone to bed at Elephant Butte Lake State Park, and we heard what we thought was a woman screaming. It was so loud, and it sounded so authentically from a horror movie or something like that.
Sheer terror.
And we jump up and we are looking out the windows. We are trying to figure out what in the world's going on. We don't see any activity whatsoever. And the whole night we were pretty nervous until in the morning we started listening to animal calls on YouTube, trying to figure out what in the world we might have heard. Pretty sure that it was a bobcat scream. And that, I was rattled. It took me a while to fall asleep that night. I'm not even sure if I did sleep.
Yeah, that scream was crazy and intense, and it really, really rattled us.
And then the next thing was there was a neighborhood that we were camped at in Las Cruces, and wasn't the best neighborhood. And we went to a drugstore there just to pick up a couple of sundry items for us. And you were being followed around at the store.
I was. It was really creepy, and I'm used to being in cities, grew up in cities, and it was just a really odd feeling. We always talk about trying to stay safe on the road. Phil and I are usually always together. I just ran in for the moment, made my way and paid and ran out and told Phil, like, lock the doors, let's get going. And it was a scary experience, and I've never, of all the years of travel that we've done, and we've been traveling for 20 years now, on and off, and I've never really felt that uncomfortable in a situation before. And so it was just scary. Obviously nothing bad happened, but as a woman, you're always out there and you always want to be kind of protective of your space. And so that was one of those moments where it had nothing to do with an activity or anything else. It was just a strange situation that, we were smart and we got out of there and everything was fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's the usual thing from the road. Nature is fine. It's the human interactions that can be the scariest, and that was certainly the case there.
Yeah. And then I think the last thing that we can both agree on is right after we left, the atmospheric river. And, the news had talked about it for a while. We didn't really know what we were expecting. I don't think that you and I really discussed how unsettling that was, being kind of trapped in the van at a campground, not knowing when the rain was going to stop, if there was going to be mudslides, if we picked a good location to wait it out. It was just kind of one of those wait and see and hope that everything went right instead of went wrong. And in the end, Phil picked a perfect place for us to hide out during the atmospheric river. It was a long few days, but it was something that we'll definitely remember.
Yeah, we didn't vocalize it to each other at all. We both were kind of like internally freaking out a little bit.
Just working, just pretending like it's not happening.
But we were parked in between two very large hills, kind of around the corner of one, and that was nice because the wind went right past us. It didn't really touch us. But when we saw how much the water had risen in the little, what was nothing, there was no water in it at all when we got there, and all of a sudden there was 10, 12, 15 feet of it, and we were right on the coast. So if we went north, there actually had been a landslide that had cut off that direction, and if we went south, we would have had to go through LA, which looked like it was totally flooded as well, at least in some of the places that we would have had to go to get through it. So we were kind of stuck where we were, and we put on a brave face, but that was pretty sketchy. We were never really in any danger because of where we were set up there and how well we were hidden away from the wind, but if it had gone on a little bit longer, I think that could have been a really dangerous situation. On a happier note, one thing that I'm going to spring on Julie right now, she doesn't know that this question exists, is places that you would like to spend a lot more time, that you would like to explore a lot more. For me, it seems funny to say because we did do a fair amount of exploring, but I'd like to do more. I'm going to say Goldfield, Nevada, the old town, the old mining town.
Yeah.
I would love to actually read the plaques on the walls, listen to the history of the place, go check out the car art a little closer, and, go back to Dinky Diner for more great breakfasts and hang out with the locals, because it really was interesting how the town seemed to have very little going on at first blush, but once you got in there, there was actually a ton happening. I'd love to check out those buildings, see what they used to be, see who used to be there, and I just love history. So Goldfield, Nevada is the one for me.
And for me, I'd probably go to most of the places again, but I really want to explore Death Valley more. It was so unexpected for me. I don't know what I was thinking that it was gonna be like, but I didn't think it would look as beautiful as it was. I knew it was gonna be desolate, but I had no idea how mountainous it was, that there's driving trails and hiking trails, and of course it's really hot. The colors on the mountains were just so gorgeous, and running on the basin was so fun, and I would do that Badwater Basin all over again. It was just an experience, and we kind of dipped our toes in it, and I want more.
Yeah, completely fair. I think if you watched that video where we visited Death Valley and Goldfield, Nevada, you probably felt our excitement in that video, because those places really are special and they deserve a lot more attention than we were able to give them. So even though they were kind of off of the Interstate 10 idea of the whole trip, they weren't that close to the highway, they were on our way home, and it worked out perfectly. It was things that we never expected to see on this trip that actually totally took us by surprise. Before we reveal our top bottle, I want to get on to the 2 bottles that we purchased while we were on the road that we just found, that we haven't seen locally, that really, really wowed us. Why don't you go first?
Mine is Hooten Young 12 year, and we had this in our Advent tournament. It blew me away.
Yeah.
Can't get it here.
Nope.
I've never seen it. And we just stumbled upon it, decided to take a chance. If it was available, I would drink it every single day. It is so delightful to drink. I love it so much. It could be a daily drinker if it was available.
Right, and it's a little pricey. I think this is about $70 that we spent for this one. It is 12-year aged American whiskey. And I have some good news for you.
What?
I have started to see it popping up online in Oregon liquor stores, so we may be able to scoop this one up locally soon, and then I suspect that line on the side of that bottle is going to drip pretty quickly.
Less excited about the $70 price point, but still delicious.
Still delicious.
And for you.
For me, it's a bottle that didn't make it home with us.
Not surprising.
It's a bottle that we got early on that I actually didn't expect much of. I'd heard about it, thought it sounded interesting, so I scooped it up. It was Jim Beam's American Single Malt Whiskey, Clermont Steep. It's not the most wildly flavorful or exciting whiskey in the world, but oh man, if that's not pleasant. If you don't like that whiskey, I don't know that you like whiskey. It's just one of those things that, like, from the moment it hit my palate, I just knew that it was going to be my bottle for the next 2 to 3 weeks, that's all I was going to drink, and that's how it went. Everything about it really struck me as this is a quality, tasty whiskey. The finish was not all that long, that much I will say, but that's one of the more palatable whiskeys that we've tasted on this trip. It was so easy sipping and beautiful and lovely that I've said it before and I will say it now. If you have not tried American Single Malt Whiskey and you have access to Clermont Steep, give that one a try.
So before we get into the bottle that we missed the most, I have one more stat for you.
Okay.
And it might be my favorite stat.
Really?
It's 0. And do you know what it stands for?
0 is the number of times that I annoyed you over 100 days.
Sure. It is for 0 cracked windshields.
Oh, that is a big number for us.
In the, how long? We've
6 years.
In the 6 years that we've owned that van, I think we've replaced the windshield 6 times.
It's been an annual event, yeah.
The way that they designed it, not conducive for highway travel. We somehow made it over 5,000 miles without a cracked windshield. Not even a chip, which means on our next trip it's, a goner. But I couldn't be more pleased with that.
Well, and Julie buried the lead there a little bit because the miles driven on this trip. I actually couldn't believe it when we tallied it up. 5,716 miles. Obviously, a lot of that was side trips and taking the long way to the places that we wanted to go to, but 5,716, that's crazy. I
didn't think we'd be going that far. I knew it'd be I thought maybe 4,000 miles, something like that, but 5,700, that is an epic adventure.
Now, let's talk about, do we want to do biggest disappointment first, or do we want to talk about the bottles we missed the most?
Let's do biggest disappointment.
All right, biggest disappointment from the road. We have 2 of them. One of them is because of the price. We expected a lot more.
Oh, right.
And the other one is because of where it comes from and the hype that it was getting. We expected a lot more. Let's talk about the one for the price, because I actually do like this whiskey, but I don't love it because of that price tag, and it is Redwood Empire's Foggy Burl.
And I will say I don't like the price point, and I didn't really care for the juice inside either. We kind of disagree on our like of this one. I think for me, it just, one, I don't think it's worth the price, but even if it was half the price, even if it was $50, those flavors just were not something that I particularly enjoyed. It was kind of like a double hit for me on that one.
Yeah, and well, I mean, what I liked about it is the interesting fudge and sort of green leafy jalapeno type of note. That combination was really, really interesting to me, but yeah, it just did not live up to what, I mean, it was our most anticipated bottle of the year. We wanted a lot more from it. And the other bottle is one that I don't think anybody's going to be surprised by, and I think that this is a consensus across the board for pretty much everybody that's tried it. Traveler Whiskey.
Right.
And a lot of people really hyping up that bottle because it's got the celebrity musician endorsement, and it seemed like there was going to be something really special going on there. It was sort of boring, it was sort of astringent, and it left a ton to be desired. So that's one of those whiskeys that I think if you are a very, very casual whiskey drinker, you probably buy it and think, oh, it's easy drinking, it's fine, it's
Right.
nice. I think for anybody that has been training their palate, they would find that one to be quite lackluster. And so even though it wasn't the worst whiskey in the world,
Right.
just boring.
Yeah, I would agree. I thought it was fine when I drank it. Like you said, it was an easy drinker. It could have been a daily drinker. It just didn't wow me at all.
Yeah, I don't want to trash any whiskeys. That's
Yeah.
not what we're trying to do here. Just saying that those two kind of had a little hype on them and neither one of them really lived up to it.
Yeah.
And before we tell you the number one bottle, we are going to tell you the bottle that we missed the most while we were on the road. We pined for it, we discussed it, we talked about it at length, and it's the first thing we drank when we got here.
I know. I think at some point it was just an evening, we're listening to music, and I go, I miss my Bull Run Bourbon Van pick. And you were like, I miss that one too. And it's just so delicious, and it's not available anymore. It's sold out. But there's just something wonderful about this pick that we did last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I really kind of wanted to take it, but we decided on the road we were not going to take any bottles. We were just going to pick new things up on the road. All I was dreaming about was just having one more dram of that.
Yeah, it was a big mistake not to bring this bottle along. It's so complex.
Yeah.
It's so flavorful. It's so enjoyable. Everything about that bottle screams satisfaction,
Yeah.
and we love it so much. And yeah, it's not available anymore, but Bull Run out of Portland, Oregon, that's the bottle that we missed the most while we were on the road. Well, we have put this off long enough. You have waited and you have wondered what in the world could possibly be their number one. And I have to add, before we get started on this one, we told ourselves we were going to limit it to one bottle per distillery.
Correct.
Otherwise, this distillery probably would have owned the top 5 spots. That's how much we like it.
And if you've been following along on the road trip, this will not be a surprise. It is Whiskey Del Bach Distiller's Cut, and this is the Spring 2024 bottle.
It's so good. It's so good. We actually went back to Tucson, not just to get this bottle, but it was part of the reason that we wound up going back there, and we bought 2 of them. They were so amazing. I think they still have some left. Each season they release a distiller's cut, and this one, I believe Abby was the one that put this one together over there, but the entire team gets together to help make it happen. This one is the classic unsmoked American single malt featuring cognac, PX sherry, and rum agricole barrel finishes, bolstered by a single barrel chosen from our private barrel selection. Secondary finished in cognac and Calvados barrels before being reblended, married, and bottled at cask strength. Doesn't that sound amazing? It is. It's absolutely delicious. Whiskey Del Bach, everything that they have produced, we have been in love with. But this bottle, certainly special, tops the list for us comfortably. And, you know, it's not the type of bottle you're going to find out there. You kind of have to go there to Tucson to get it. We cannot recommend that highly enough.
Yeah.
And we did a single barrel pick while we were there. I believe that there's a handful of those bottles left at Shared Pour, so you can either go to thebourbonvan.com and click on single barrels, or you can click on the link that is in the description below and see, because the one that we picked we are in love with, of course, but this is a very, very special bottle, and fantastic job, Whiskey Del Bach. You're making terrific whiskey in the Sonoran Desert, and it blew us away.
Well, there you have it. That officially closes our road trip.
It's over, huh? Yeah.
We'll have to plan a new one.
We will, yeah. Big bummer, actually. It's been a great trip. It's been a great time. Thank you to everybody who joined us on the road for it. And we actually saw some of you on the road.
We did.
Most of you just sent us positive messages and told us how much you were enjoying the content. So thank you so much, because every single one of those messages means the world to us. Before we go, I want to know, would you buy a bottle of this Still Austin Bottled in Bond Rye?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to hesitate. It's so delicious. We haven't had it that long. It's almost gone. So if that doesn't tell you something, and we did share it with friends, but I feel like we shared it with ourselves more.
That is absolutely the truth. Well, that's going to do it for the Bourbon Vans. I can't even believe it. Interstate 10 Southwest trip is over. We've been talking about this for 15 months now.
Yep.
And it's finally over. Thank you again so much for joining us on the road and from wherever we are.
To wherever you are.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I think we need an oil change.
Oh, yeah, we definitely do. And a car wash.
Yeah.